The 57th floor of Manhattan's gleaming Tower 1 offered a view that most people only saw in movies. Nathan Hayes stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office, watching the city lights flicker to life as dusk settled over New York. The Wall Street Journal on his desk had his face on the front page again. Hayes Capital's unprecedented growth continues. He should have felt proud, accomplished, fulfilled. Instead, he felt nothing. The article praised his ruthless efficiency and legendary work ethic. What it didn't mention was how he hadn't taken a vacation in 5 years, or how he hadn't been able to sleep in his master bedroom since Sarah and Tommy's accident. His Apple Watch buzzed again, another meeting notification. "Mr. Hayes?" His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "The board is waiting in conference room A." Nathan straightened his Armani tie, a habit more than a necessity. "On my way, Jessica." The corridor to the conference room stretched long and empty, his footsteps echoing against marble floors. 5 years ago, he would have passed Tommy's drawings taped to these walls. Sarah would have been texting him about dinner plans. Now there were only framed achievements and stock charts. The board meeting went like clockwork, precise, predictable, profitable. Nobody mentioned how his hands shook slightly when he took a sip of water, or how his smile never quite reached his eyes. By 7 p.m., the office had emptied except for the cleaning staff. Nathan's Tesla waited in the underground garage, sleek and silent like everything else in his life. The drive home to his Upper East Side penthouse felt longer each night. Marie, his housekeeper, had left dinner in the warming drawer: organic salmon, quinoa, roasted vegetables. Perfect nutrition, zero comfort. "I wish you'd let me cook for you properly, Mr. Hayes," she'd say every morning. "You're not just a stomach to feed." But Marie had gone home hours ago, leaving only a note next to his dinner. "Don't work too late. The plants miss you." He almost smiled at that. Marie had been filling his home with greenery for the past year, claiming empty spaces needed life. The plants were thriving under her care, unlike their owner. Nathan's phone buzzed. Carter, his lawyer and oldest friend, calling again. He let it go to voicemail. Carter would want to talk about feelings, about moving forward, about how Sarah wouldn't have wanted this half-life for him. The penthouse spread out before him, 3,000 square feet of designer furniture and emptiness. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the Manhattan skyline, a glittering backdrop to his solitude. Tommy's room remained untouched on the east wing, door firmly closed. Sarah's books still lined the library shelves, arranged by color as she'd liked them. Nathan poured himself 2 fingers of bourbon, a nightly ritual. The amber liquid caught the city lights, creating patterns on the marble countertop. His wedding ring felt heavy on his finger, a weight he couldn't bring himself to remove. The silence pressed in, broken only by the soft hum of the climate control system. His reflection in the window looked successful. Tailored suit, expensive watch, perfect haircut. The perfect image of a Wall Street success story. The American dream personified. Except the American dream wasn't supposed to feel this hollow. His phone buzzed again. A news alert about Hayes Capital's latest acquisition. Another victory, another headline, another empty celebration. The bourbon burned going down, but couldn't touch the cold inside. Tomorrow would be the same: meetings, decisions, profits. An endless cycle of achievement without fulfillment. Marie would arrive at 7, bringing fresh flowers and worry in her kind eyes. The cleaning service would polish everything to perfection at 9. His assistant would manage his empire with military precision. And Nathan Hayes, the man who had everything, would continue to have nothing that truly mattered. He walked to the terrace, the night air sharp against his face. Below, Manhattan pulsed with life and possibility. Millions of stories playing out in windows and streets. Families having dinner. Couples walking hand in hand. Children being tucked into bed. All the simple things that had slipped through his fingers 5 years ago. A siren wailed in the distance, echoing between buildings. Nathan checked his watch. Almost midnight. Another day ending exactly like the last. Until something changed. Until he changed, but he didn't know how anymore. The bourbon glass clinked against the marble as he set it down. Tomorrow was another board meeting, another deal, another headline. Another day of being Nathan Hayes, Wall Street titan, the man who had everything, except what mattered most. The man who had built an empire, but lost his heart along the way. He turned from the window, leaving the city lights behind. The empty penthouse waited, silent and pristine, ready for another night of sleepless wandering. Another night of avoiding photographs and memories. Another night of being alive, without really living at all. The rain came suddenly, as it often did in Manhattan during October evenings. Nathan's Tesla glided through the wet streets, wipers keeping time with his troubled thoughts. Another late board meeting had stretched past 9, filled with discussions of mergers and profit margins. The same conversations, different numbers. The same faces, different day. Fifth Avenue stretched before him, usually bustling, but now eerily quiet in the downpour. Designer boutiques gleamed like jewel boxes, their windows displaying dreams for sale. Nathan barely noticed them anymore. His phone buzzed Marie, checking if he'd eaten dinner. He'd missed her texts about the fresh groceries she'd bought, about the chicken pot pie she'd left War Ming, about how empty houses needed the smell of home-cooked meals. The traffic light turned red at 82nd Street, and Nathan's fingers drummed against the steering wheel. That's when he saw them, two small figures huddled under the bus shelter, barely visible through the curtain of rain. Something about their posture made him look twice. Children, young girls, clutching each other as if against more than just the cold. Their clothes were soaked through, their shoulders trembling. Nathan's first instinct was to look away, to drive on like everyone else had clearly done, to let someone else handle whatever crisis this was. But then one of the girls looked up, her eyes meeting his through the car window. And suddenly, he was watching Tommy again, standing in the rain after his last baseball game, proud despite the loss, brave despite the tears. Before Nathan knew what he was doing, he'd pulled the Tesla to the curb. The automatic window hummed down, letting in the smell of rain and city. "Are you all right?" His voice sounded strange to his own ears, gentler than he'd used in years. The girls, twins, he realized now, pressed closer together. Their matching blonde hair was darkened by rain, their faces pale with exhaustion and fear. The braver one started, then faltered. "We have nowhere to go." 5 words that shattered Nathan's carefully constructed walls. He could see they were well dressed beneath the rain, or had been once. Private school uniforms, now muddy and worn. These weren't street children. Something had gone terribly wrong in their world. "I'm Nathan Hayes," he said softly, trying to sound trustworthy. "I can help you get somewhere safe." The girls exchanged glances, having one of those silent conversations twins were famous for. Fear warred with desperation on their young faces. A police siren wailed in the distance, making them jump. "I have a warm home," Nathan continued, surprising himself. "And my housekeeper makes the best hot chocolate in Manhattan." It was the kind of thing Sarah would have said, the kind of natural kindness he'd forgotten he possessed. The braver twin, he'd later learned she was Emma, took a small step forward. "You promise you're not bad?" The question broke his heart. What had these children seen to make them so wary? "I promise," he said, meaning it more than any business deal he'd ever made. "My name is Emma," the first twin said quietly. "I'm Gracie," whispered the other, still partially hidden behind her sister. Nathan got out of the car, holding his umbrella over them. "Let's get you warm and dry." The drive to his penthouse was silent except for the soft hum of the heater. In his rearview mirror, he watched the girls slowly relax in the warmth. Their eyes grew wide as they pulled up to his building, the doorman rushing out with an umbrella. "Good evening, Mr. Hayes," James said, not batting an eye at the unexpected guests. The elevat, or ride to the penthouse, felt surreal. Nathan found himself watching the twins' reflection in the polished doors. They couldn't be more than 8 or 9. Tommy's age when he pushed the thought away. The penthouse doors opened to warmth and light. Marie, bless her intuition, had left lamps glowing softly. The smell of chicken pot pie filled the air. "Are you hungry?" Nathan asked, realizing he was too. For the first time in years, the girls nodded shyly, still holding hands. "But we're all wet," Gracie worried, looking at the pristine floors. Nathan surprised himself by laughing. Floors can be cleaned. Being warm and fed is more important. It was something Sarah used to say. He led them to the kitchen, where Marie had left notes about reheating the food, about which plates to use, about not working too late. First, hot chocolate, he decided, remembering his promise. As he moved around the kitchen, heating milk and finding Marie's special chocolate mix, something shifted in the carefully ordered universe of Nathan Hayes. The empty penthouse didn't feel quite so empty anymore. The silence wasn't quite so loud. And somewhere, deep in a heart he thought had stopped feeling, something started to thaw, like spring arriving after an endless winter, like light finding its way through cracks in a wall, like hope, unexpected and fragile, taking root in the most unlikely of gardens. The girls sat at his breakfast bar, their feet dangling from the high stools. Steam rose from 3 mugs of hot chocolate, and Nathan Hayes, the man who had everything except what mattered, found himself caring again about something more important than stock prices, about something that couldn't be measured in profit margins, about 2 small souls who needed help on a rainy Manhattan night. Outside, the city continued its eternal dance of lights and shadows. But inside, something new was beginning, something that felt strangely like redemption, something that felt almost like coming home. Morning light filtered through the penthouse windows, casting long shadows across the hardwood floors. Nathan found himself watching the twins sleep on his oversized living room sofa, their small forms curled together like quotation marks. Marie had arrived early, taking one look at the situation before quietly preparing breakfast. The smell of French toast and bacon now filled the air, a reminder of Sunday mornings long forgotten. "They're angels," Marie whispered, joining Nathan in his vigil. "But there's fear in their eyes, even when they sleep." Nathan nodded, noticing the way Emma's hand still clutched her sister's, even in dreams. The night had revealed little, the girls answering questions with careful vagueness. But their designer uniforms told a story of privilege, while their haunted eyes spoke of something darker. Emma stirred first, her blue eyes blinking open with momentary confusion. Then fear, quickly masked. "It's okay," Nathan said softly, keeping his distance. "You're safe here." Gracie woke next, immediately pressing closer to her sister. Marie made breakfast, Nathan offered, gesturing toward the kitchen. "Real breakfast?" Gracie asked, her voice small but hopeful. The question made something twist in Nathan's chest. What kind of place made children grateful for real breakfast? Over plates of French toast and fresh berries, the story began to emerge. Sunshine Children's Home looks perfect from the outside, Emma said, pushing berries around her plate. "Like a fancy private school." Gracie nodded, her fork trembling slightly. "Mrs. Parker makes sure everything looks nice when people visit. But it's different when they leave," Emma continued, her young voice heavy with old pain. "We have to clean everything, all day long. And if we don't do it right." Gracie's voice trailed off. Nathan's hand tightened around his coffee cup. "No more food that day," Emma finished. "Or worse." Marie made a soft sound of distress, quickly busying herself with more bacon. But Nathan saw the tears in her eyes. "What about your social worker?" he asked, keeping his voice carefully neutral. "Miss Olivia tries to help." Emma brightened slightly. "She brings us books sometimes and sneaks us snacks. But Mrs. Parker says she's just a troublemaker," Gracie added. "She makes Miss Olivia stay away a lot." Nathan pulled out his phone, texting Carter. His fingers moved with the same decisiveness he used for million-dollar deals. "Need you at the penthouse. Now. Bring your tablet." Carter arrived within 30 minutes, his usual polished appearance slightly rushed. His eyebrows rose at the sight of the twins, but he quickly smoothed his expression. Nathan led him to his home office, leaving the girls with Marie and a Disney movie. "I need everything you can find on Sunshine Children's Home," Nathan said without preamble. "And their director, Mrs. Parker." Carter was already typing. "Prestigious private orphanage, Upper West Side," he read. "Major donors include several Wall Street firms." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Including Hayes Capital?" Carter nodded grimly. "Annual contribution of $2 million. "Not anymore." Nathan's voice was steel. "There's more," Carter continued, scrolling. 3 staff complaints filed in the past year, all mysteriously withdrawn." "Find them," Nathan ordered. "And find me Olivia, their social worker." A soft knock interrupted them. Emma stood in the doorway, looking small but determined. "Are you going to send us back?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Nathan crossed the room, kneeling to meet her eyes. "No," he said firmly. Never. Emma's lower lip trembled. But Mrs. Parker has powerful friends. So do I, Nathan replied, surprising himself with the fierce protectiveness in his voice. And I protect what matters. Carter cleared his throat softly. Nathan? Le. Find me a way. Nathan cut him off. Whatever it takes. Emma's small hand slipped into his. Miss Olivia has pictures, she whispered, of the bad things. She keeps them hidden in her desk. Nathan exchanged looks with Carter. Find her, they said in unison. Back in the living room, Gracie had fallen asleep again, the morning's emotions taking their toll. Marie covered her with a soft throw blanket, humming something soothing. Nathan watched them, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Not as a burden, but as a purpose. His phone buzzed. Carter had an address for Olivia Martinez. Upper East Side, just a few blocks away. I'll be back soon, he told Emma, who nodded solemnly. We'll be here, she said, curling up next to her sister, as if she couldn't quite believe it herself. As Nathan's elevator descended, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. The fierce drive that had once made him Wall Street's youngest billionaire. But this time, it wasn't about money or power. It was about two little girls who needed protection, about a system that had failed them, about making something right in a world that had wronged them. The elevator doors opened to the lobby, and Nathan Hayes stepped out, not as a grieving widower, not as a corporate titan, but as someone who had finally found something worth fighting for, something that mattered more than all the wealth in Manhattan, something that felt like redemption, and maybe, just maybe, like family. The autumn wind whipped around Nathan as he stood outside Olivia Martinez's brownstone apartment. Fallen leaves danced at his feet, carrying whispers of change in their spiraling dance. His knock echoed through the quiet Sunday morning. Each second of waiting waited with purpose. When the door opened, he found himself facing a woman whose eyes held the same fierce determination he'd seen in Emma's. Miss Martinez, he began, but she cut him off. They found you, didn't they? Emma and Gracie. Her voice trembled with a mixture of hope and fear. The morning light caught the silver threads in her dark hair, testament to battles fought long before this one. They're safe, Nathan assured her, watching relief wash across her face like a sunrise. I've been trying to protect them for so long, Olivia whispered, inviting him inside. Her living room was a testament to her dedication, walls lined with child psychology books. Files spread across her coffee table, each one a story of a child she'd tried to save. Mrs. Parker has friends in high places, she continued, pulling out a hidden folder from behind a loose brick in her fireplace. But I've been keeping records. Nathan's hands tightened as he looked through the photos. Children scrubbing floors at midnight. Empty plates and haunted eyes. Bruises explained away as accidents. Why hasn't anyone stopped this? His voice carried the W. 8 of corporate boardrooms. Olivia's laugh was bitter as winter wind. Money talks louder than children's tears in this city. She pulled out more documents, her hands steady with purpose. I've been building this case for years, but nobody would listen. Until now, Nathan said, his mind already forming battle plans. His phone buzzed, a text from Marie. The girls are asking for Miss Olivia. Something softened in Olivia's expression. They remember the books we used to read together, she said, touching a worn copy of The Secret Garden on her shelf. Before Mrs. Parker banned me from reading time. The drive back to Nathan's penthouse was filled with shared strategies and growing trust. Olivia's presence in the passenger seat felt right somehow, like a missing puzzle piece falling into place. When they arrived, Emma and Gracie's faces lit up like Christmas morning. Miss Olivia, they cried in unison, running to her. She knelt to embrace them, her professional facade cracking to reveal pure love. Marie appeared with hot chocolate and knowing eyes. Watching them together, Nathan felt something shift in his universe. This wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about healing, about family, about second chances. Carter arrived an hour later, armed with legal documents and determination. The system's rigged, he warned, spreading papers across Nathan's dining table. But every system has its weakness. Olivia's evidence was damning, but Mrs. Parker's connections ran deep. 3 judges had already dismissed similar complaints. 2 reporters had been silenced. One previous employee had mysteriously relocated to Alaska. Then we'll find another way, Nathan said, his voice carrying the same tone that had built his empire. We're not just fighting for Emma and Gracie anymore. Olivia looked up from where she sat with the twins, her eyes meeting his across the room. Understanding passed between them like electricity. We need to go public, she said, standing up. All of it. Every photo. Every document. It could get ugly, Carter warned. Sometimes ugly is necessary, Nathan replied, watching the twins play with Marie's cat. They deserve this. Safety, warmth, love. Every child did. That night, after Carter left with his battle plans, after Marie had tucked the girls into bed with stories and kisses, after Olivia had reluctantly prepared to leave, Nathan stood on his terrace, watching the city lights flicker like stars. You're different from what I expected, Olivia said, joining him. Wall Street titans aren't known for their hearts. Nathan smiled, remembering his own transformation. Sometimes it takes a rainy night and two brave little girls to remind you who you really are. Their shoulders brushed, sending warmth through the cool evening air. We could lose everything, she warned softly. Or we could change everything, he countered. Below them, Manhattan hummed with life and possibility. Above, stars peeked through breaks in the clouds. And in the space between, something new was growing. Something that felt like courage, like purpose, like the beginning of a love story, written in the language of justice and healing. Tomorrow would bring battles and headlines, lawyers and testimony, the full force of wealth and power pushing back against truth. But tonight, in this moment, they were just two people standing on a terrace, united by a cause greater than themselves, and a love that had caught them both by surprise. Autumn painted Central Park in shades of gold and crimson, as Nathan watched Emma and Gracie chase falling leaves. Their laughter carried on the breeze, a sound that had become as essential to him as breathing. Beside him on the park bench, Olivia's shoulder brushed his, warm through the fabric of her sweater. They're different now, she observed softly, watching the twins play. Their eyes have light again. Nathan nodded, remembering the haunted looks they'd worn that first rainy night. You gave them that, Olivia continued, her voice carrying something deeper than gratitude. We both did, he corrected, finding her hand with his. The touch felt natural now, like coming home. The past month had transformed them all in ways none could have predicted. Emma's nightmares had gradually subsided, replaced by dreams of ballet classes and science projects. Gracie had discovered a talent for painting, turning Nathan's home office into an impromptu art gallery. And Nathan had remembered how to live. Do you ever think about what happens after? Olivia asked, watching a leaf spiral down between them. After we win the case? The question hung in the air like mist, full of unspoken possibilities. I think about it all the time, he admitted, remembering last night's conversation with the twins. How Emma had called him daddy for the first time, so naturally it brought tears to his eyes. How Gracie had fallen asleep in his lap while he read Goodnight Moon for the third time. Olivia's fingers tightened around his. I've never seen you smile like that before. The observation made him turn to face her, really look at her. The wind had brought color to her cheeks, and scattered leaves had caught in her dark hair. She looked like autumn personified, warm and rich with possibility. I never had a reason to, he said simply. Emma's voice interrupted the moment, full of childhood urgency. Daddy, Miss Olivia, look what we found. The girls ran toward them, clutching something carefully between their joined hands. A baby bird, fallen from its nest. Can we help it? Gracie asked, her eyes wide with concern. Nathan watched Olivia kneel beside them, her voice gentle as she explained about wildlife rescue. The way she always knew exactly what to say, how to turn every moment into one of learning and love. That evening, after returning the bird to proper care, they walked home through the gathering dusk. The twins skipped ahead, their matching backpacks bouncing with each step. Stay where we can see you, Nathan called, an instinct he hadn't known he possessed until recently. Olivia's hand found his again, fitting perfectly. They need a mother, she said quietly, watching the girls. Nathan's heart skipped at the longing in her voice. They already have one, he replied, drawing her closer. They're just waiting for her to realize it. Tears gathered in Olivia's eyes, catching the light of the setting sun. Nathan. But Emma and Gracie were running back, full of plans for dinner and stories. Marie had promised spaghetti and meatballs, their favorite. The elevator ride up to the penthouse was filled with chatter and warmth, so different from the silent ascents of his past. In the kitchen, Marie orchestrated their usual chaos of family dinner. Emma setting tables with meticulous care. Gracie arranging flowers she'd collected from their walk. Olivia helping with sauce, her sleeves rolled up, completely at home. Nathan watched them all, his heart full of something he'd thought lost forever. Later, after bedtime stories and goodnight kisses, after Marie had gone home with her knowing smile, Nathan and Olivia stood on his terrace under a blanket of stars. "You've changed everything," he whispered into her hair. "We changed each other," she corrected, turning in his arms. The city lights sparkled below like earthbound stars. But Nathan saw only her eyes, bright with tears and truth. "Stay," he said simply. "Not just for dinner. Not just for the girls. Stay for me." Olivia's answer was a kiss, soft as falling leaves, tender as new beginnings, sweet as second chances. Above them, a harvest moon hung low and golden. Below, Manhattan hummed its eternal lullaby. And in between, on a terrace high above the city, two souls found their way home at last. Through the glass doors, they could see Emma and Gracie had snuck out of bed, watching with matching grins and hopeful eyes. Their little matchmakers conspiring all along. "I think we've been set up," Olivia laughed against his lips. "By the best conspiracy ever," Nathan agreed, holding her closer. Tomorrow would bring more battles, more testimony against the orphanage, more steps toward justice. But tonight was for this miracle, a family forming from fragments, love growing from loss, hope blooming in the most unexpected garden of all. Their hearts, once broken, now healing together. The first snow of December transformed Manhattan into a sparkling wonderland outside the courthouse windows. Nathan stood at the weathered oak railing, his testimony complete, watching snowflakes dance like stars falling to earth. Behind him, the whispers of justice being served echoed through the marble halls. Mrs. Parker's empire had crumbled like a house of cards in the winter wind. 17 form. Her employees had come forward, their stories weaving a tapestry of truth too powerful to ignore. But it was Emma's small voice that had changed everything. The way she stood, brave and clear, describing nights spent scrubbing floors until her hands bled. How Gracie had held her sister's hand throughout, their strength flowing between them like an invisible current. And Olivia, her testimony delivered with quiet fire, years of careful documentation finally seeing light. Now, in the hushed aftermath, Nathan felt the weight of change settling around them like fresh snow. The judge's words still hung in the air. Sunshine Children's Home will be immediately closed. All children to be relocated. "You did it," Olivia whispered, appearing beside him like a dream. Her eyes held tears and triumph in equal measure. "We did it," he corrected, drawing her close. Through the courthouse windows, they could see Marie arriving with Emma and Gracie. The girls wore matching red coats, their breath making clouds in the winter air. Their faces glowed with more than just cold, with belonging, with certainty, with love. "There's something else we need to do," Nathan said softly, feeling the weight of the ring in his pocket. He'd carried it for weeks, waiting for this moment, waiting for justice to be served before beginning their own story. "The girls helped me choose it," he continued, leading Olivia toward the courthouse steps. Her breath caught as understanding dawned in her eyes. Outside, the snow fell in gentle swirls, turning the city into a fairy tale scene. Emma and Gracie rushed forward, their faces bright with shared secrets. Marie hung back, wiping tears with her ever-present handkerchief. Nathan knelt in the gathering snow, holding out the ring that carried all their hopes. "You helped me remember how to live," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You showed me that love isn't just something you lose. It's something you find again in the most unexpected places." Olivia's tears fell like snowflakes, catching the winter light. "You showed me that family isn't just something you're born into," she replied. "It's something you build with courage and trust and second chances." The girls could barely contain their excitement, bouncing on their toes in the fresh snow. "Say yes," Emma burst out, making them all laugh through their tears. "Please," Gracie added, her eyes shining with hope. Olivia knelt beside Nathan in the snow, her hands trembling as they found his. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes. The ring slipped on her finger like it had always belonged there. Like she had always belonged with them. The girls threw their arms around them both, creating a circle of joy in the falling snow. Marie's happy sobs echoed across the courthouse steps. Passers-by stopped to smile, caught in the magic of the moment. And somewhere, Nathan thought, Sarah and Tommy were smiling too, blessing this new chapter with all the love they'd left behind. That evening, the penthouse glowed with warmth and celebration. Christmas lights twinkled early, transforming the space into a wonderland. The scent of Marie's hot chocolate and sugar cookies filled the air. Emma and Gracie had fallen asleep on the sofa, surrounded by holiday decorations they'd insisted on starting. Olivia stood at the terrace doors, watching the city lights shimmer through the falling snow. Nathan wrapped his arms around her from behind, breathing in the scent of her hair. "What are you thinking?" he asked softly. "About paths," she replied, leaning back against him. "How sometimes the hardest ones lead you exactly where you're meant to be." Through the glass, they could see their reflection. No longer separate souls fighting lonely battles, but a family forged in struggle and strengthened by love. "We should wake the girls," Olivia said after a moment. "Get them to proper beds." But Nathan held her still, savoring the perfect peace of this moment. "Let them dream a little longer," he whispered. Outside, the snow continued to fall, wrapping Manhattan in possibilities. Inside, in a penthouse that had transformed from a mansion of memories into a home of hope, a family that fate had woven together from broken threads found their own happy ending. Or perhaps, Nathan thought, watching Olivia's ring catch the Christmas lights, not an ending at all, but a beginning, a beautiful, unexpected beginning, written in the language of second chances, spelled out in the laughter of children, and sealed with a love that had been worth waiting for all along.